Welcome back to Adobe Illustrator. We are ready to take our concepts that we sketched here and really expand on that and really kind of get some finalized logos here for the client. And there's a great chance that the logo concepts that you're going to see here that we sketched out, these really rough looking concepts, are going to look nothing like, the end logo is going to look nothing like them. We're really going to challenge kind of our iterations and challenge our concepts and really make it come to life. So speaking of which, when we're in here and you want to bring in, either you take a photo of your hand sketch with pen and paper, or you have your digital Procreate app and you export it as a JPEG. However you bring it in, all you have to do is kind of bring it in as a rough kind of JPEG or screenshot. And there's this really neat tool called Image Trace. And how you do image trace is you're going to go ahead and highlight your photo. I just brought this in as a JPEG. I actually took a screenshot of it in my Procreate app. I didn't even export as a JPEG. And you go up to Object, and you're going to go down to Image Trace, and you're going to Make. So it's kind of similar to a clipping mask where you kind of make as the kind of that language. So Image Trace, Make, and it's going to trace everything it sees and make it a vectorized item, which if you were a graphic designer a couple of years ago, before they came out with Image Trace, everybody had to hand trace with the pen tool all these custom illustrations, and they lose this kind of custom brush work that you did. And this is great for custom typography. If you really like to hand draw this amazing typography and you wanted to keep that really hand raw sketched look and feel, this is a great way to do it, to bring that in and do an image trace, because all logos, they can't remain on pen and paper. They need to be vectorized. You need to always have a vector version of your logo. So if you still want to have that custom raw sketch look, it's really hard to emulate that with the pen tool, but you can go do the object and go to image trace, and it's an amazing tool. So now that we've done image trace on this image, you'll see that I can't have access to all the little anchor points to be able to manipulate this a little bit further. So I just need to do one more step, and that's go to Object, and you want to expand. So this is going to expand it, and you're going to do Object and Fill, which is default, and then click OK. And here we are. There's our little vectorized version. We can ungroup it, and now we have access to, you might have to right click and ungroup a few times. And there we go. We have all of our anchor points here that we can manipulate. We can do with the pen tool, we can manipulate, or we can do it with the curvature tool to customize it. So we're not going to do this. This was just a quick little sketch. Doesn't look amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. But just wanted to show you the amazing image trace feature so that you can be able to bring in that kind of custom look when you need to. So here we are with the first sketch. Let's try to kind of come up with our own version. We're not going to keep that because that's so rough. You know, I really am not a custom illustrator. Definitely much better with vector and Illustrator tools. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm kind of seeing this idea, and it's going to evolve a little bit with a coffee cup. So let's go ahead and start creating a little coffee cup outline. This is a top-down view of a coffee cup, so we may need to have a little bit of shadow so it doesn't look like just a circle, kind of add a little bit of detail to it. So I'm just getting the ellipse tool, and I'm just going to draw a simple circle. And let's go ahead and make this a stroke if we can, and make it a little bit thicker. And so what I want to do is I want to have that top-down look. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste, make this a little bit smaller, and see if I can't get the rim of the coffee cup. I want a nice thick coffee cup rim, just like that. And we're not going to be exploring color yet, so everything's going to be kind of black and white, and I like to make it a little bit of a darker gray to kind of emulate color a little bit better. And so now we need to do our little handle that comes out the side. So let's do that. We can go ahead and we could do the rectangle tool. That might be the easiest way to do it. Little handle coming out here. And then we can also just customize these. If you could double click them, you can edit just one angle. And that just gives it a nice round appearance. And we can bring this in and then get that curvature tool and match the curve. Okay, so now we need to add kind of a sense of shadow. Let me just make sure my curve is matched. Okay, so now we need to add a sense of shadow, because right now it just looks like circles with something coming out the left. We really want to add some dimension to this, and we could do that with a simple shade of black. So we're just going to draw a square here. Just have the pen tool, and I'm just kind of creating a shape. And I'm going to take that curvature tool. I'm going to use the curvature tool a lot, kind of match that curve of the glass so you can kind of see how it looks like a shadow kind of being cast. And it doesn't have to be quite as long. We can make that a tighter shadow if we need to. and that looks great. So there's kind of our rough coffee mug shape. We can go ahead and put our C in there. I want to find a nice C typeface that's a geometric style typeface. So geometric style typefaces or really adapt well to circles. You can kind of tell in the Google logo how the G fits really good in a circle because it's a geometric typeface like a Futura. So let me find a geometric typeface that's also thick. We can customize the type, we can hand draw it with a pen tool, but I like to start out with a typeface because it just makes it a lot easier to get the natural shape of the letter. So I'm just going to go over here to my go ahead and find a good font that would work really well that's geometric. Azo Sans happens to kind of have a little bit of a geometric shape to it. You can kind of see how it curves along a circle a little bit better than other types may not. So let me just show you an example. Let's do one that I know is not a geometric shape. So Helvetica is not geometric. As you can see, it doesn't fit in the circle quite as well. It's got kind of some different gaps there. So we're going to use Azo Sans Black, and we're going to have to use the pen tool to adjust the G a little bit. So we're going to right click. We need to create outline so we can go ahead and edit our anchor points. And let's go ahead and take the pen tool and go ahead and match the gray. So now what I want to do is I want to hug this G in there, and actually I think we have a C. And I think my goal is, instead of having the Coffee Guild just have the C, I really want to work in the C and the G, because I feel like leaving out the G, it just feels empty with just the C. So I'd love to kind of incorporate a G maybe inside, just kind of thinking about this. So let's go ahead and copy and paste. We can see what would happen if we put the G inside. I put the C outside. Since it's Coffee Guild, coffee is going to be the first letter. So we're definitely going to have to customize this a little bit to make it work. So you can see this is not quite fitting exactly how I'd like. I'd like it a lot thinner of a stroke. So what you could do is there's a few things you could do. You could do object, path, you could do an offset path, and you could do a negative offset path, so it makes it a little bit skinnier. So let's try that, maybe not quite as skinny. And they can always ungroup it and move the other original to the side. And then now you have kind of your skinnier version already. You can go in and you can edit this to make sure it goes around the circle a little bit more precisely by using the direct selection tool or the curvature tool to kind of move it and shift it so that it matches kind of the angle. So all we're doing is we're just kind of matching the angle of the circle of the cup, of the rim of the cup. We're just using the direct selection tool and making some movements. Remember, you can always, if you're doing curves, don't ignore the curvature tool. It could be very helpful, kind of fine-tuning curves, especially if you want them to be exact. So there's kind of our C. We could probably make sure this width right here is matched. If you want to be really mathematically precise, we could probably create our own C. And you could do that by doing circles. So we can do a circle, and then another circle, make it a different color, and kind of create our C that way. And just go to my align panel. I'm doing all the center aligns so that I know this is perfectly center aligned. We could take the shape builder tool, we could punch this out. We can also draw a shape halfway down. Okay, and now we have we're selecting all three of those. Getting our shape builder tool, we're going to punch all this out. So just punching all that out. And then we're left with the perfect C. And let's say I don't like the thickness of that. That's where the path, the offset path tool really works well. If we want to do a positive 0.02, we can thicken it up a little bit. No problem, just like that. So that could be the way we do it. It's a little bit more mathematical because it's using a circle. Or you can do the method I have and then kind of shorten the C a little bit by using the shape builder tool and just punching all that out. So either way works. You know, this is a little bit thicker, but we can also make this thicker by using the offset path tool. So now let's try to work in our G. So the G is where we're gonna really need some help here, kind of doing what we did prior. So we're gonna see if we can tuck that in the center here, just trying out this concept, seeing if that works at all. We can zoom in and you can see it doesn't match perfectly into the circle, but it's pretty darn close. And I like to add a little bit of distance between the characters because when you have a logo and you zoom out, you want to make sure there's enough gap there to really make out the spacing, because I see a lot of mistakes in logo design and they'll have like really thin lines between elements, and when you zoom out it really loses the spacing as you zoom out. So I like to have nice thick lines. I also like to have nice thick spacing between elements to make it really clear when the logo is seen small. So just like a little logo design tip there. So I'm going to create outlines on this because I want to be able to match the curves a little bit on this. So I'm going to take the curvature tool and I'm just kind of matching all of this and kind of bringing that down a little bit so it has more of a circular bend to its curves. And this is where we can soften the type a little bit. So if we want to have rounded corners, you just get the direct selection tool. You're going to go ahead and drag this down. It's going to change all of them at one time. Just going to do a subtle curve to soften the type so it doesn't look so sharp. And we could do the same thing to the C. And we can soften those curves there. Let's go ahead and zoom out and kind of see how this concept is going. Here's our coffee cup coming to life. I like the idea of the C and the G put together. What I want to do is have some more contrast between the C and the G so they don't run together as one symbol. They're read as separate letters. So we could just do, we're not doing color as much at this point in the stage. I like to kind of keep it black and white. We're working on the concept first, not necessarily the color. And then we're just going to lighten that up a little bit, just kind of give a little bit more contrast. And another thing, when you kind of zoom out and you're kind of looking at your logo and going, is this going to work? I'm zooming out and I'm going, you know, there's a lot of lines and there's a lot of strokes happening. Let's find ways to simplify this logo mark even further to make it more simple shapes. So one thing we can do is make this a solid kind of circle instead of two lines. Instead of an outline or a stroke, we can make this a solid mug kind of rim. So we could do that easily. We have kind of our two shapes here. We could just make these both a fill. And let me make this a different color so you can kind of see what's going on. So all I did is made those two circles fills, and I'm just going to take the shape builder tool and just hold down Option and punch that out. And voila, we already have a filled in shape. We want to make this a fill, so we're going to flip that to fill, and then we're going to make this a little bit of a lighter color. Perhaps we could make this, that color, of course, that's a shadow, so we may need to reverse that out and make this a lighter of a gray, and still make that a shadow. And maybe not make it cast as much, as we're kind of playing around. How big is the handle actually going to be? Another thing we can do is to make it more obvious that it's a handle is maybe rotate it a little bit, give it a little bit of an angle, and have it be a little bit down on the coffee cup so it looks kind of like a little angle, like it's hanging out on a coffee table. I'm just going to bring that to the back. Great. There's our little coffee. Let me make it a little bit thicker. Just doing little small adjustments to everything. So I think that looks really good. It puts more emphasis on the lettering and a little less emphasis on the coffee cup, which I think we really need if we're going to do an abbreviation type logo. It's kind of nice to have more accentuation on the type.